More than half a dozen black employees at a GM plant say they are facing racist threats and intimidation at work. Their evidence is laid out in a lawsuit with pictures of nooses, whites-only signs, and the N-word they say showed up inside the plant. While GM says it takes discrimination and intimidation seriously and is doing all it can to get rid of the problem, a state law enforcement agency ruled it isn't doing enough. CNN's Sarah Seidner has a story, and I have to warn you, okay? You will hear racial epithets and disturbing language in this story.
Every day he walked into work, Marcus Boyd prayed he'd survive his shift unscathed.
I felt like I was at war, risking my life every day.
Derek Brooks, a former Marine, worked in the same place. Both were supervisors on different shifts at the General Motors transmission plant in Toledo, Ohio. Brooks considers himself tough from his military training, but he struggled to handle what was happening at work.
How rough and tough can you be when you got 11 or 12 people who want to put a noose around your neck and hang you till you're dead?
There's a reason he brings up nooses. It's not just a figure of speech.
This is the picture of the noose that I found the night that I was at work on my shift.
According to a lawsuit now pending against GM, this is one of at least 5 nooses discovered at their workplace in separate incidents. The suit also claims there were signs that blacks were not welcome there. Whites only scrawled on a bathroom wall, along with swastikas on bathroom stalls and niggers not allowed scratched or written on bathroom walls.
This was saying, you don't belong here. This was saying, if you stay here, this is what could possibly happen to you.
In this struggling town, Brooks and Boyd didn't want to leave their 6-figure jobs. Brooks has 8 children. Boyd takes care of his mother, who is an amputee. Now, they and 7 others have sued GM for allowing an underlying atmosphere of violent racial hate and bullying. When did you notice overt racism?
Well, when an employee that was under me, he told me that back in the day, a person like me would have been buried with a shovel.
He said what to you?
That was a death threat, and I was told to push that to the side.
Boyd says he reported the incident.
He admitted to it, and I was pulled to the side and said, you know, if you want to build relationships here, you know, you just let things go, he'll be all right.
But he says the threats got worse. Were you afraid for your life?
Definitely. That's why I left.
When the noose appeared in March of 2017, Derek Brooks says he reported it to upper management. He was sure he was the intended target, but says he was told to investigate by questioning his employees.
It felt like a slap in the face. It did, but I had to be professional.
Brooks and other black employees also noticed being called Dan.
I thought they just mispronounced my name for Derek. Then later I find out that Dan was an acronym for dumbass nigga.
General Motors sent us a statement insisting discrimination and harassment are not acceptable and in stark contrast to how they expect people to show up at work. We treat any reported incident with sensitivity and urgency and are committed to providing an environment that is safe, open, and inclusive. And that every day, everyone at General Motors is expected to uphold the values that are an integral part of its culture. But according to more than half dozen current and former black employees, the problem is the culture. They say inside this plant, racism and harassment are the norm, not the exception.
It is a culture.
It's a culture.
Yeah.
You have to, it's from the top down and the bottom up.
One employee filed a police report. Others filed complaints with the Ohio Civil Rights Commission prior to filing suit.
The ultimate decision that was made is that GM did allow a racially hostile environment.
They allege they investigated quickly and have done remedial things to take care of the problem.
The commission disagrees with that position. GM did not do very much at all, or what they did do was not effective.
GM says that they held mandatory meetings and even closed the plant for a day for training and to address the issue with every shift. The Civil Rights Commission report noted a former union president's testimony that during one of those meetings, a white supervisor said too big of a deal was being made of the nooses. After all, there was never a black person who was lynched that didn't deserve it. The lawsuit alleges that supervisor was never disciplined.
General Motors is supposed to stand for something, right? That's the great American company. Well, what are you doing about this?
A GM representative that we spoke to says that they have not identified those who put up the nooses, and therefore no one has been fired for those incidents. They said, however, that some people have been dismissed in that Toledo plant during what it's calling its extensive anti-discrimination and anti-harassment work, and that work continues today. But Don, guess what else continues?
Yeah.
The racist threats. Just today, we received a picture from inside of the plant sent to an attorney that mentions hanging people. There have been other threats against those who have spoken out, black workers there, threats directed directly at them, and they are now in fear and would not go on camera because they were in fear for speaking out again in case more threats came their way as they're going through this process, Don.
You told us, Sarah, what GM said. What about the union?
So we did speak to a UAW representative, and he said, look, he'd been there for 34 years. There could be some, what he said, bad actors that work there, but he didn't believe that there was widespread intentional racism. Now, he said something very interesting. He says, do I believe that people are a little too sensitive in this day and age? Yes, but you can't say the same things you used to say 20 years ago that you can say now. That is the problem that these workers are talking about, being called sensitive when they're facing these really extreme racial epithets, really extreme behavior, and they're being told to suck it up and get along.